So welcome to the PowerSchool Special Programs Deep Dive. We're going to talk about security groups and SIS roles today, particularly within the lens of how can you go in and modify the baseline configurations which were deployed within the Alabama model. We're going to specifically talk about how you take an existing security group and copy it. We're going to discuss assigning the PowerSchool SIS roles to all of your security groups, how you could modify group privileges and document template security, how to manually manage membership and the constraints that are part of that, as well as adding users to supplemental groups if they're part of more than one group. And last but not least, what is SIS Integrated Security Preview and why is it really so important for us to use? All right, the first thing that we're going to do is talk about copying a security group. And I am going to go into my database. I'm going to go to a real world example because I want it to show you, want it to look very similar to the way your screen looks. So you're going to be logged in as an admin. So you'll see your admin account. I'm just popping over just to kind of use one of our districts as an example for you. It's just the baseline default groups that you all have. So it looks the same for everything. Nothing personal here on this screen. If you navigate over to administration, security, we're over in this area that has all of our Alabama default security groups. And this is exactly what your security should look like. You will see that there is a variety of categories. And within each category, you have these different default security groups that were created for your users. And in our security session from our first strand of webinars, we talked about security. We reviewed what all of these different properties and privileges are in security. And so I won't be going over those today. I would encourage you, if you like, and you want to just kind of do a review of that, go grab the recording on security, and you can kind of fast forward and listen to the section on privileges if you need. But these privileges have been pre-configured based on the person who we would expect to be assigned to this. And so in this particular case, it would be the special education administrator, the security group default. And here are all the properties and privileges that we set up based on what that particular individual would be allowed to do. Now, we talked about what all these different privileges are. I realize that it's a little daunting to take a look at this screen. And so what I have done for all of you, and I'm hoping that you will find it helpful, is I've given you a quick reference guide to say, here's what we set up for you, and here's the important information that you need to know. Here's the category. Remember, they're organized into categories. There's a category for the admin folks. That might be people like the district technology coordinator, your help desk, your support people, maybe somebody who is managing site-based things at the site. Next to it in red, there is a column that says PowerSchool SIS user access role. Those are the roles that are created in SIS. And those are the roles that are going to get assigned to your users when they are given security in PowerSchool SIS by your sysadmin. You remember we talked about security and what that process would be. The groups are set up over in special programs, but the users are assigned access roles and security groups in SIS. And when they sign in for the first time, it places them in the correct special programs security group because it's mapped. And here are the mappings, and they're in red. So next to those mappings, there's a column that says what kind of access they have. Remember, when we talked about security, the primary function of your privileges determine what data you see. And so in this particular area, I have given you kind of a shortcut to remind you what these groups can see for students. So if I have system-wide access, I can see every student in the district. If I have location-wide access, I only see the kids that are in the locations that I'm assigned to under the teacher affiliation tab. Under the security privilege overview, I've done my best to give you a description of what this security group can do by summarizing it. And I'm going to I'll come down here to my I'm going to go down to special education category. So in the case of a special education building administrator, there is the SIS role that needs to be assigned to it. It's location-wide. What can they do? They have access to caseloads and classes that they're allowed to edit themselves. They can import students from the general ed table, and they can refresh profiles on demand. That just means that they can click refresh and integration refreshes it. They have access to the student demographic profiles and all of the special education profiles. Their profiles, all the special education documents, and all the special education reports. In addition, they are allowed to view and edit and change the status to all special education documents, okay? So as you go down and you look at this document, you will see all of the groups that are currently set up and have defaults. In addition, you're going to see some green ones. Where there's a green one, it's a role that's not there, but you might want to add it. And so that's what we're going to go through today. How do I add a group? How do I take what's there and give me another one? Now, in this case, why might I want a special education district administrator? Because I have a special education administrator that's location-wide. I don't have a special education administrator group that allows me to see all kids and all demographic and special education related profiles. Okay. And yet there might be district-wide psychologists. It might be the special education director. Okay. So if you need to have specifically a group that just has those rights, then we can copy this one, which is the building administrator that can do all of these things. And the only thing we need to do is copy it and change it from location to system-wide. And that's what these instructions are going to walk you through. Okay. Now, so print this out, keep this handy. This is your kind of your little guide to kind of managing and wending your way through all of those setups over there. The first thing to do if you wanted to create a new security group is to make a copy of the one that is the closest in what you want to resemble. So in that case, I'm going to take that special education building administrator and I'm going to copy it to a new one and change the privileges. So the first step to creating a copy is in administration, you're going to open the group you want to make a copy of, and you click the More button and then select the new security group. And it says right there, do you want to create a new security group using the privileges that this one has? And the answer is yes, I do. And if you're doing this along with me, that'd be great. If you're not, I definitely want you guys to practice this. So I have this opened up. So let me start from the beginning. Administration configuration. I'm going to go to security. I'm going to go to the category that I think most closely resembles the one that I'd like to use as my copy. And that happens to be the special education administrator. I'm going to open it up and go over to more. And I'm going to select new security group. And I'm going to give it a name. It's going to be my special education district administrator. Down below are all of the privileges that the building administrator had. So I'm going to click accept and notice it brings over all the document template rights. Yes. And there it is. I've made a copy of it. But now I need to edit it. So I'm going to edit the properties and privileges because I'm a district administrator. And as far as your special access privileges, you can leave those alone. Those are just, that gives the user a caseload. So what I really want to change is I want to move from location-wide to system-wide. So all of these and because you're making a copy, and we know this one already does what you want it to do, now, here's an important note, and that is if you are in the student profile area and you are changing from system-wide to location-wide or from location-wide to system-wide, they all must match. If I try to save this, well, in this case, it did save it. Usually it doesn't like that. I guess it may not give you an error, but let me just be clear here. You want to be cautious because if you want to make sure that you are grabbing them all, otherwise you're going to, they're not going to be consistent. Okay. So I've changed all my student profiles to system-wide. go down to the next area. Under staff, notice that it also is only giving them access to the staff in their building. So you want to change this to system-wide. Under the general ed, that's location-wide. I'm going to change that to system-wide. I'm going to come up to the classes and let them see the classes system-wide. And then I'm going to save it. All right. So what have we done so far? We've copied it. We've modified the security privileges. So from the Properties tab, navigate to any of the features, change them. Yeah, I said if you're changing from system-wide to location-wide, all privileges must match. It's not that, I mean, you could make them not match, but keep in mind that for district personnel, they in PowerSchool SIS, in many cases, they're assigned a location that's the district office. And the district office doesn't have any students enrolled at it. So if you give access to a privilege that is location-wide to a district office person, if that's their location, they don't see any data because there aren't any kids in a district office location. So that's the reason for this statement and why it's important. District level, if you're at the district office, you need to have system-wide access or you see no students. Okay. The next step, if you were making changes, is to modify the document template security. So going back to this, we changed the properties and privileges, and in the document template area, it may be that I don't need to change anything, or it may be that I want to create a group and the only differences in the group, maybe I don't need to change any properties and privileges, but yet I need to change something in the document template area. That's entirely possible. Notice that I copied all of the properties over that came from the Special Education Building Administrator. So it looks pretty good. And maybe the only thing that I want to change, if it's a district special ed person, is maybe I want to, and I'm not saying that you would do this, I'm just saying maybe you would want to do it. Oops, I got out of my building. Here we go. Special education. Here we go. District administrator. You have authority to, if you needed to go into a particular document, you could edit and tweak any of the document template rights. Now, we talked about document template rights when we were going through our document properties in our Strand 1 webinar sessions. Let's talk a little bit about it again here. When you are working on a document that has more than one section, and we remember that, we call those multi-section documents, then you see both document-wide rights and section-wide rights. And all of your security has been set at the document-wide right level. So that means that if I edit the document-wide rights here, they flow down to all of the sections beneath it. And that's a great assumption for us to do that as a baseline, but you need to be aware that you can control security at the section level. Okay? And there are some production go live tasks that are on your homework list that I'm going to ask you to do. And that is for some very specific documents, and an IEP is one of them. You're going to go into the section-wide view edit rights for all of your special ed group, and you're going to turn on the edit final for the signature page, the document delivery, and the progress report. And the reason that you're going to do that is because in order for a user to finalize the signature page, which also includes adding consent dates and signature dates, as well as being able to complete a progress report, you have to be able to edit the finals. And we were not able to push out different kinds of section security on all the models. So there are some follow-up things on your production go live list to remind you to do, just so that when you get ready to start doing IEPs and things live, your users have the right security here. Okay, so I'm going to turn those on and click save. Now, I'm looking at this special education district administrator. If I drop down, notice that I don't have to go back to the staff security groups to just move to another security group. So that was this district administrator. If I go to the special education administrator, I can just click edit, turn those on as well. Come up here, go to the special education teacher. And it's really important for the special education teacher because the special education teacher needs to be able to do progress reports. All right, and I can mark that task complete now. All right, so to modify document template security, you select your document template in security, you click on the magnifying glass, and you pop over here to your editing rights. If you set editing rights at the document wide right, it goes all the way down to all of the sections. If you have a multi-section document, you can control it at the section level. All right, so let's go back and make another change. Okay, I'm looking at a special education teacher now. I'm trying to think of a good example. And I think this is fine. Just be aware, and maybe you need to create a group that's for, your related service providers, for example. And you don't want your related service providers to be able to create an IEP. You only want them to be able to edit the drafts of an IEP, okay? In which case, you could take your special education teacher, you could copy it to a related service provider, and then of course you could edit the document templates. And in this case, it would be similar to this. I might say, You can't create it, but you can edit it or review it. So I can control if I want to just limit some things. I also could set it completely at the section level so that if I had particular groups of users and the only thing that they were allowed to do would be to view the document and edit transition goals, for example. So you can see some examples of how I can control access at the section level. I'm not going to save any of that. Okay. All right. So now you can see, also be aware that if I make this a special education district administrator, and this one says special education administrator, and if it confuses you, go change the name, make it a building one. Okay. This is your security. It is not going to get refreshed again by the product team like other product updates. They just provided you a baseline and it is now your security to do with as you want. Now, there are two different schools of thought. One school of thought is if I'm going to make changes to security, instead of changing any one of these, I would make a copy and leave my group defaults alone. That's entirely up to you. Either way, you know, it's your security. If you've changed it, that's fine. If you want to keep your defaults the way that you have them and not change them, that's entirely up to you as well. What is critical is that as you finalize your security, the groups that you are going to use, whether it's a copy of the special education administrator or you're going to use the default one, the roles, the groups that you are going to use must have a role assigned to them. They must. They do not have any roles assigned to them yet, and that is why here on your sheet, these roles are in red. And your task, it is a production go live task, is to finalize your security. You can use them exactly the way they are. If you're going to use them exactly the way they are, you still need to go in and for every one of these groups, assign that mapping in the description area. And watch me do this. So the first one is there happens to be a security administrator system-wide. There's also a district admin of special programs, which if you're with me today, might be you. Notice it's called the SPED district administrator. If you go over to your database, and you look at your security, there is going to be at the very top something that says district admin. And this is your SPED district administrator. So what I would tell you to do is I would tell you to go to security, open this up, click edit privileges, and make sure this says SPED district administrator. You have to change it. It was labeled it was just called district administrator, and our pilot sites decided that that was confusing to them. And so they've renamed it SPED district administrator. And up here, if you don't even want to keep that, you can keep that. Yeah. So I just kind of cleaned up the title. It's up to you what you call them. I just think it makes more sense if it's called an SP district admin. The PowerSchool SIS user access role needs to say SPED district administrator. And then you're going to go through all of your groups. Look at what it's called here. Look at what it's mapped to on the document. Security administrator system-wide. That's called the SPED system administrator. So open this up. Edit properties and privileges. PowerSchool SIS user role. There you go. And they have to match exactly the way they are in this document, because these are the names of the roles over in PowerSchool. And that is what tells the user when they're signing in what group to put them in. So they have to match exactly. And until you do this mapping in PowerSchool SIS, your users won't be ready to sign in when we go into production. So it's very critical. It's very important. Right, so I'm going to pop over to the end of this. Oh, there's one other thing to know about this is, remember, in the case of a SPED district administrator, or where I added someone, I add a note here that says, you know, if you add a new group and you want to map this group to your users in PowerSchool SIS, you're going to have to add an access role in PowerSchool SIS to match this. And that's why I said, okay, so if you add this group, add this special education district administrator role over in PowerSchool SIS as well, and then map it. All right, so I'm going to kind of take us to the end of this, because I just want to make sure everybody knows this is out here. At the end of your quick reference guide, I have also included quick reference instructions. And that's how important all of this, all of these to-dos are, because each one of these areas, you know, we're going to want to make sure that you totally understand when we get you ready for production go live. So I started it off by just reminding you how to reset your admin password. Okay. How to create a new security group by copying one. We just talked about that. This includes copying a security group, modifying the privileges, going to the document template tab, so forth and so on. So that's that whole step where we have pictures in the slide deck. Here's the instructions. All right, document-wide versus section-wide viewing right. We talked about that. Manually assigning the PowerSchool SIS user roles. To assign a PowerSchool SIS user access role, open the group, enter the PowerSchool SIS user access role. This is a critical step to being able to access single sign-on when you go into production go live. Now, single sign-on is not turned on. It's been disabled. And that is a very important reason for doing that, and that's to control the ability to access to be able to access the data that's out there. I'm sorry, I was reading the Q&A, and hold on a second, everybody. So PowerSchool SIS user access roles are disabled, but there is an option that is set to preview. And what that allows us to do is it allows you to, as security is being created in PowerSchool SIS and as roles are added to users, it allows you to come over and search for the person. And you can go to, under their profile, there's something that's called SIS Integrated Security Preview. And this is going to show you when that person signs in, what security group they're going to become a member of. And if you don't have your user access role filled in the security group definition, this won't work. There will be nothing here. Which also means that if that user signs in, all those users that are supposed to go into this 504 administrator security group, none of them will work. So it's really critical that you go in and you remember to map those groups. When users are mapped to those groups, when they sign in, they are placed in that security group. However, you as a security administrator can manually add people to a group. But I want you to be a little bit cautious here and think about this. When a user signs in, they are placed in a group. And in the case of this, she's going to be a 504 person. Okay. So if I go over to her record, she's a 504, she's in the 504 group, and I take her out of that group manually, and I put her in a gifted group manually, the next time she signs in, she's going to go right back into that 504 group because she's mapped from PowerSchool SIS. It's assigned based on the role assignment in SIS. So yes, when the first time a user accesses it using single sign-on, they're going to go in that group. If you take them out manually, the next time they sign in, they're going to go right back in. So you can manage membership over in special programs, but you need to do it based on a supplemental role. And by that, I mean, if they have a role that's assigned to them in PowerSchool SIS user access, but you also want to give them another role over here, you can do that, and you can do that manually. And the best example of that, which I will talk about when we do our administrative utilities deep dive next week, is in the case of something called transfer notifications. So it's a little bit of a different concept here. And we'll talk about this more when we talk about transferring kiddos. But there is a security group that is called the transfer notification group. And that is a group that a user who can send out transfer envelopes. A transfer envelope is all of the students' records. Think transcripts. In this case, it's IEPs and 504s and documents, that all of their transfer information. They have an option to send that to other districts. So in order for a user to be able to do that, they need to be in this group. Well, you're not going to assign them to this group in PowerSchool SIS. They don't have a user access role. It's just it's one person at every district. So in that case, you would come over to the member area, and regardless of what this person could do in other groups, you would manually assign that person to the group. Okay. So I might have other security but I can manually assign it. And so when that user signs in, sure, maybe they're going into the 504 group, or maybe they're the special ed district administrator or whatever, but they also have been manually added to another group. And that's exactly how you're going to do it when you add folks to that group. So to manually manage membership, you can do it from the security group level, just like I did. I can go to the transfer notification group and I can just search for and add that person who's going to have that supplemental role. I also can do it by searching for a user. So if you want to see what a user has, you can search for the user. So go to your search for your staff record. And when you open that staff record, there is a tab that's called security. And in that tab, it's going to show you all of the security assigned to that user. So from here, if I wanted to see, for example, let me go to my staff, and I wanted to see what my practice teacher could do. Notice that I have a profile and I have a security padlock. If I click the profile, I can go to security. If I just click the security, it takes me directly to security. And here's security. And if I click edit security, I see what they've been assigned to. And I can see, so I said, if you are assigned as the building administrator for gifted in PowerSchool SIS, don't uncheck it here. The next time they log in, they'll just go back into that group. Okay, but I could add them to a different one. And how would I know what they're mapped to? Because I could come over here and go to the SIS Integrated Security Preview and see what they're mapped to over here. And if they were mapped to more than one thing, I would see all those different things. And as long as they're mapped to it, I can't remove them from that group, or they're just going to come right back in. Okay. Okay, now. There are, as I said, some important tasks for production go live. They are included in here, the things that you need to do. We will be in our office hours schedule. We will be offering an office hours, open office hours to work with you on security. Okay, they'll just be regular Zoom meetings where you can talk to us. You're going to be signed in. They're going to be hands-on. So we're not going to just be lecturing. Our expectation is that when you get ready to go into production go live, we are going to have on our checklist some of these items, and we're going to check it, and they have to be complete for us to sign off on you, because we don't want you going into production, for example, and not having somebody in your transfer notification group. We don't want you to go into production and not have added your section-wide edit final rights to your progress reports, your RTI plans. Okay, so there's a list of things that you need to do. We're not going to let you go into production if you haven't added your PowerSchool SIS user access roles. Okay, so for sure, you've got the information today here. We're going to provide you with the next 15 minutes or so for you to actually do some hands-on, log in as an admin, follow the instructions, navigate over and begin to navigate and explore some of these, okay? If you are at a district and you need some more individualized help, that's what those office hours are for, so that we can work with you, right? And you can talk to us and we can even see what you're seeing, and really give you one-on-one help if we need to. That's the purpose of them. But you know, by all means, we want you to go ahead and begin the process now, if you can. Now, I'm going to go back to this handout. And as I said, here's all your instructions. We talked about creating a new security group. Talked about manually adding a member to a security group. Manually adding security group to a staff profile. We just went through those two things. Now, there's one other area. Let's see if I can make this bigger. That I have included some instructions for. And that is because, remember, single sign-on is not enabled. And yet I have had individuals say to me, I have other members of my core team that I would like to add as an assistant. I want them to be able to log in and help me do this. I have a team. And when I work with implementations everywhere else, there's always a core team. There's always 5 or 6 people, 2 or 3 people who are part of the implementation team. You can share your admin account and provide that person a password. If you are the admin, you own that password and that account, and you certainly can share it. The second thing that you can do, because single sign-on is not enabled, is you can create additional staff profiles for external sign-on via the URL, okay? And I have provided instructions for how to do that. You give them, you select the staff and you click Add Staff Profile. You assign an ID and that's their login credential. So if you assign someone Admin Assist, that's what they're going to log in as. You go over to the Security tab and you put them in a security group. And I suggested, if it's an admin assistant, put them in the Security Administrator System 1. And then you would need to activate a temporary password for them. And then that is an external credential that they can use. We are also going to use this same process for you setting up your core team when it's time for migration review. Because remember, we need to have a group of you who are going to be on that validation team to review your data. And they're not going to have single sign-on. Single sign-on will not be enabled until after the migration review is done. So that's what these instructions are for. If I go to staff and I click Add a new staff profile, I would give them a name. These are just generic accounts. I would accept it. I would click on security. I would edit security. I'm going to put them in this Security Administrator System 1. Put them in that group. Come up to and edit security again. Give them a password, give them a temporary password and give it to them. And they'll have to reset it when they sign in. And they would have to have the Alabama link, your school district ID, and the credentials that you give them. Okay,